OM-1 firmware update version 1.6, which was released about 2 weeks ago, has apparently improved the autofocus in regards to single autofocus, particularly in low light situations, as well as subject detection for all the different subject types, such as birds, planes, and trains, and that kind of stuff. So this is according to a German blog, and I did update my OM-1 camera firmware about 2 weeks ago as soon as the version release was available, but I haven't used my OM1 that much in the last 2 weeks, so I can't confirm or reject whether these are correct or not. And it's really difficult to test the improvements of a firmware update unless I have two cameras with the different versions side by side to test it to see what the difference is, particularly when you're talking about marginal differences in hit rate of autofocus. But once I test the OM1 more, I will provide an update as to whether these changes have made a substantial improvement or not. Pergear has launched the 25mm f1.7 lens, and this lens comes in the Micro Four Thirds mount as well as other mounts. It's a completely manual lens, so it doesn't have any electronic contacts. So just an additional lens, but I think there's so many 25mm lenses. You have the 25mm f1.8 with Olympus, and there's also the Olympus 25mm f1.2 and similar ones from Panasonic as well. There's I think an f1.7 from Panasonic. So there's quite a few 25mm lenses. But anyway, this is another edition and it's available in the Micro Four Thirds mount. Sony Xperia has launched a new streaming device called the PDT-FP1. So this streaming device is almost identical to the Sony Xperia 1 Mark V, but it does have some additional hardware. So it has two USB-C ports, which means you can connect one for powering the device and you can use one for actually sending your video stream to it. And it has an active cooling fan, which the Sony Xperia 1V doesn't have. And in fact, the Sony Xperia 1 does overheat a lot, so you have to switch off a lot of the different services like electronic stabilization, for example, to be able to continue to stream without the phone overheating. And so it runs Android and it has the same external monitor app which you can use for streaming. But one of the advantages it has over the Sony Xperia 1V is that you can stream at 4K 60, although the video footage would come from an external camera as opposed to the device itself. And PDT stands for Portable Data Transmitter. So the main aim of this device is to transmit data from cameras to the streaming service or to an FTP server if you're just transferring files. And in comparison to the Sony Xperia 1 Mark V, it does have less cameras. So it doesn't have, all three cameras that the Sony Xperia 1 has. So in that sense, it's more of a data transmitting device than it is a phone or a camera. Sony also has a device called the Sony Xperia Stream for Xperia phones with the model number XQZ-GG01. And this device is one which you attach to your Sony Xperia 1 phone, and then it provides an active cooling fan and more ports for connecting network or headphones and that kind of stuff. One of the disadvantages of that is that it actually blocks the camera view, so you can't use it for streaming unless you're inputting your video stream from an external camera. So this is also an option to use if you want to use your Sony Xperia phone as a streaming device, similar to the PDT-FP1, which is a dedicated data transmitter device. Both Sigma and Tamron have announced lenses for the Canon RF mount. So previously it seemed like Canon had taken legal action against anyone that was using the RF mount and their protocol to create lenses or adapters for the cameras. So it seems like Canon has come to some sort of agreement with both Tamron and Sigma for creating lenses. Now, what would be interesting is to see whether Canon will also come to some sort of agreement with those companies that create adapters for Canon RF mounts. Because if those manufacturers who create adapters for the Canon RF mount release those adapters, that means there will be less sales for Canon RF lenses as well as the same lenses for Sigma and Tamron. So maybe Canon won't actually allow manufacturers to create adapters for their Canon RF mount, but it won't object to companies like Sigma and Tamron creating lenses.